Hi, this is Jeff Davis with the Davis Group coming to you with agent training number 15, expired listings. Now, when you are in the realm of a realtor, a real estate agent, you are going to be focusing on one of two directions. You're either going to be listing properties or selling properties, which means you're working with either sellers or buyers. If you decide to work with sellers, you have to have lead sources in order to continually get listings. Now, we've talked about a few. One of them, of course, would be creating a geographic farm. Another one is working your warm market. Here's another one: expired listings. Now, if a listing does not sell and the listing agreement comes to the end, it then becomes an expired listing. So that's basically what it is. This house was on the market and it didn't sell, and now the agreement between the previous realtor has come to an end. That makes this listing open game for everybody. Now, the assumption is that this seller does still want to sell because they've had the house on the market. So hopefully their situation hasn't changed to the point where they've changed their mind. This becomes a great source of potential leads for agents. And a good agent learns how to work expired leads. As a matter of fact, you could basically focus the majority of your listing activity on expired listings. Because again, these are not people who may or may not want to sell per se, but these are people who have thought about selling and for whatever reason it didn't sell before. Now, the thing to keep in mind with real estate, just keep it in the back of your mind, is this: every house sells for the right price. Every house. It can be in the worst neighborhood. It could be a dump. It could be, in a place where people look at it and say, oh my goodness, I would never buy that. But every property has a price. And so typically when a house expires, this isn't always the case, but typically it's because of price. Now, does that mean the price is too high? Sometimes. Doesn't mean the price is too low. On occasion, but not often. So when you understand dealing with an expired listing that price has a lot to do with a house selling, you want to make sure you go in here and you do your homework. This is why it's important to understand how to comp property. You have to be able to understand how value is determined by lenders. Because ultimately, unless a person is paying cash, the lender's value is what's going to determine how much the house sells for. And lenders use appraisers. Appraisers use comparables. And as realtors, we have access to comparables. So once you learn how to do this, you're able to try to make sure that the house is appropriately priced. Now, price alone isn't what sells it because it also has to be marketed. But price is important. So you want to make sure that you get property at the correct price. Now, as I said before, there could be a variety of reasons why a house doesn't sell. You want to talk to the owner and you want to find out what happened when the house was listed. For example, how often was it shown? Did they receive any offers? Did they have any open houses, etc.? You want to get a good idea of what did and did not happen with this house. Maybe they did get offers and they just couldn't pull everything together. The buyer and seller couldn't agree. Maybe they got no offers. Maybe they did have an open house and they had traffic, but no one made an offer. Maybe they didn't have an open house. Whatever the case may be, you want to know what it is that caused this house to not sell. Because whatever that is, you have to make sure you correct. You can't go in there and do what the previous realtor did, or you're going to have the same results. So, here's a strategy that you need to follow if you want to find some success in this area. Number one, remember there are a lot of agents that only deal with expired listings. So, be prepared for a lot of competition. This is not something where you're going to be the only agent trying to relist that house. You're going to have a bunch of agents trying to relist the house. Again, some agents only focus on the expires. So be ready for the competition. You want to approach this listing as if it's never been listed before. You don't want to treat it like an expired. You have to treat it like a new listing because you have to come into it with fresh eyes to see exactly what's going on. Find out from the seller if anything that was done before in the past actually worked. Did they have an open house that had a lot of success? Then maybe the problem wasn't the open house. Maybe it was how the potential buyers were dealt with, and you'll have to address that. Maybe they did get offers, but they just didn't pull it together. Well, then you have to address that. Was it because the seller wouldn't come down in price? Were the offers too low? Did the buyers want the seller to make too many concessions? You have to, again, find out what went wrong so that you can make sure that you fix it. Many times the reason that the listing expired is still present. So you have to be prepared to deal with that. Okay? Right now, for example, someone says, well, I lost my job and right now I can't afford to move out. That's not a problem you can fix. Because if they're not motivated to move, there's absolutely nothing you can do to get them to move. Sometimes people don't want to make any changes. You tell them, okay, look, that bedroom is a loud green. You need to maybe tone it down a bit, maybe paint it beige or white. And they say, nope, we're not painting anything. You got to buy it as is. Well, if you expect people to buy it as is, be prepared to make some price concessions because people will buy as is, but they're going to ask for something in return. And you help the seller to see that you would do the same thing. When you're looking for a house, if you're going to give something, you're going to want something in return. You're not going to just go and give the seller everything they want. That's not how negotiations work. You need to identify, was it price or was it marketing? If it's price, you have to let the seller understand how price is determined in the marketplace and how they need to be competitive if they want to sell. For example, let's say they had the house on the market for $550,000 and the market calls for $500,000. You have to walk the seller through a reality check. Mr. Seller, here's what happens if you're the buyer. You're out there looking at all these houses in the area that you want that have the things you want, and you've got a house here for $550 where the price is fixed, and you got another house here at $500. If you're the buyer, which way are you going to go? Now, the seller may think that their house is so special and it has all these extras and, oh my God, we got this, we got that, and that's all fine and good. But that's not where value and price comes from. The buyer has to want to buy and they're going to compare. They're going to comparatively shop. And there's no way you're going to get them to pay $50,000 more if they can get the house they want at $50,000 less. So we have to help the sellers to see this is how value is done. And Mr. and Mrs. Seller, when you're on the other end of this and you're the buyer, these are the things you're going to do. You're not going to pay attention to what the seller wants for the house, regardless of what the house has. You are going to look in the market. And if you can find a comparable house cheaper, there's a very good possibility you're going to go with the cheaper house because that's just the way buyers think. Now, if marketing's the case, then you just have to find out what was done. Sometimes realtors don't do much marketing. They don't do a good job marketing. And so this may be where you come in now and you show your expertise. Maybe the seller said the first time, I don't want any sign in the front. I don't want people to know we're selling. Well, 3 ways that houses sell in today's market is, number one, sale sign. People that drive by looking at neighborhoods will see your sign and they will call on your house. If they don't see your sign, they're not going to know your house is available. Now, of course, you got people that look online. That's definitely a way people go. And you have people that work with a realtor. But when you're trying to sell your house, you're trying to move it as quickly as possible for as much money as possible. And so my question to you, Mr. Seller, is, are you prepared to not have the house sell because you're unwilling to do things to market it? I mean, we could do a test drive. We could go, put it on the market and let's see what kind of activities we get in a week or two. And at the end of 2 weeks, if we don't have the activity, if we're not getting any calls on this house, let's put a sign up, see if we can change it. But bottom line, my job is to market your house. And so I want your help in doing that. And you have to get the seller's help to market, which is why you present a plan showing them the different things that you will do. Sometimes realtors don't get along with the owner. And the owner feels like, our personalities are clashing and we need to go somewhere else. There's not a whole lot you can do with that. If you're a man and you're dealing with someone that doesn't want to deal with men, then you're in trouble because you can't change being a man in order to accommodate this seller. Now, the other option you do have is if for some reason they don't want to work with you, then you can work it out where maybe they'll work with someone else in the office that doesn't have that same hang up that the seller has with you. Maybe again, if they don't like men, maybe you could have a woman to list the house and then you guys just share in the commission. So you've got options, but realize that in order for this to work, the seller's got to like you. And you got to like the seller because you got to work together. Now keep this in mind, finally. Sellers are not going to relist with you to get the same results they just had. They don't want that. If they want their house to sell, they do not want it to sit on the market for months, no activity, no contracts, no nothing. You have to ensure that doesn't happen. You have to come in there with a game plan that is relevant, one that makes sense, one that the seller can see the potential, and you have to show them how working with you gives them a different result. Because if you don't do that, they're not going to work with you. So again, expired listings are great. You can do well with them, but you got to be prepared, and you can do it.